Is Hyundai's newly facelifted Palisade extra large 8-seat champagne on a beer budget? Well, let's find out, because the big SUV's biggest lure is value. Turns out there's much more to this MY23 version than its humongous parametric shield front end. Yes, there's more tech and improved safety, but these things are expected for a key model update. There's a host of other new stuff, such as improved body reinforcement, more sound deadening, thicker rear glass, and improvements to the suspension dampening. So all of that and more conspires to make Palisade as comfy and as polished as it can possibly be. So while its rivals are the likes of Kia Carnival and Nissan Pathfinder, it stacks the goodies high enough that it really wants to lure buyers away from the likes of Mercedes-Benz GLS. You get a lot of metal, glass and rubber for Palisade's tip-in point of $65,900, but that's for the elite version with a 3.8 litre front-wheel drive powertrain. That's right, Hyundai has trimmed down the Palisade range from 3 to 2 variants because pre-facelift, nobody bought the base version. Turns out that Aussies like to splurge, and Hyundai is forecasting that 70% of buyers will pick Highlander, 80% of those will be diesel, and 60% will be the 8-seat configuration. The price for the all-you-can-eat diesel Highlander is $79,900, which is a lot of money for a Hyundai, but that's about half of the tip-in point for Mercedes-Benz GLS. And it turns out that the Palisade recipe has been popular enough that in the first 6 months of 2022, it's outsold the smaller and more affordable Santa Fe. I really like the new styling. It's a little bit less Americana, a little more multinational, but it doesn't lack any of the old car's presence or charisma. It's just 5 millimeters shy of a full 5 meters with an extra 15 millimeters of length, most of it in front overhang. The Highlander gets lashes of satin chrome, and both versions get a design cue that's fast becoming a bit of a Hyundai signature, in that the front lighting is actually flipped. So the head and driving lights are positioned down here, but the turn signals are actually hidden where you'd usually expect to find the headlights. It's pretty neat indeed. If it's party tricks that you're into, there's plenty on offer in the Highlander cabin, which largely hits its targeted marks, but isn't without some shortcomings. Pride of place is the dual 12.3-inch display screens, which has kind of become the default for premium window dressing. But rather than have an awkward flat panel that sort of is mounted onto the front of the dash fascia, the instrumentation is actually countersunk for a more conventional vibe. And I really like that. You get the new look 4-spoke steering wheel, push-button transmission controller, and all of the display work is crisp, fast and intuitive, though much of this can be found in other Hyundai models. You get a more powerful 15-watt inductive phone charging pad, but frustratingly, both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are still wired. There are some high street touches in Highlander form, which includes a 2-tone colour scheme, this lovely suede headliner, and very nice Napa leather trim. And you also get this switchable digital analog rear view mirror. Also very cool is the new dash-wide air vent trim. But frankly, it's no Genesis in here. Take for example, the wood trim, which looks and feels plastic, and some of their execution is certifiably mainstream. There's a palpable Hyundai ambience and vibe in here that just doesn't have the richness that you expect from its Genesis cousins, but the Palisade doesn't ask for Genesis money. One of the big tricks in the Palisade bag is the Australian debut of Bluelink connected services. Remote functions from a phone app allow you to monitor the car using the surround camera view, or turn the climate control on and off. New smart key functionality means you can turn the engine on and off, park forward or reverse remotely in tight spaces, or even raise or lower the windows. Of course, one of the big Palisade draw cards is space, and while the facelifted version doesn't get any more of it than its predecessor, it was pretty good to begin with. Row 2 is really spacious, and one of the big changes is that the rear seats are now heated and ventilated in Highlander spec and get these wing-style headrests. You also get dedicated third zone climate control and handy USB ports in the side of the front seats. The 7-seat option is still available, which fits 2 captain's chairs in the rear, so you get more of a business class-like effect for fewer occupants. Unsurprisingly, row 3 is a little more cramped and more child than adult friendly, and you'd have to be pretty skinny to fit 3 of us across the back here. As a full 8-seater, you get 311 litres of cargo space, but once you drop the 3rd row, it liberates 704 litres. So how much does it cost to run the Palisade Diesel? The big SUV is backed by Hyundai's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Servicing is every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever comes first, at $489 per service. Its combined claim is 7.3 litres per 100, and after a couple of 100 kilometres of country and urban driving, including peak hour, it's returned a solid 7.5, which is bang on the money. In the last 12 months, the median budget direct customer spent $1,124 to comprehensively insure a new Hyundai Palisade. Everybody's situation is different, and your premium will vary based on factors insurers take into account, like where you live, where you park the car, and your driving history. On road, the Palisade sways between competency and genuine comfort, depending on how and where you drive it. So let's start with the all-important ride quality. When it's loaded up with loved ones and luggage on the move, it can be serenely settled. But one up on a lumpy back road like we are now, it can get a little restless, especially across the smaller imperfections. The suspension is a global tune that's calibrated for local conditions rather than specifically tuned by Hyundai Australia. The result is a calibration that's more supportive than it is certifiably plush. Good for body control and engagement then, but it's not quite as cushy as it could be. This new version picks up selective damper control rather than the fixed valve dampers in the old one, which is supposed to promote compliance, though you'd really have to back-to-back compare the two to really see much difference. Oh, it's good and comfy, but there's just not quite enough compliance to smother the rough stuff. And there's a surprising amount of tyre roar. Again, Hyundai says that 80% of buyers will pick up the diesel powertrain, and it deserves similar appraisal. It's good, if not quite exceptionally so. The oil applies 147 kilowatts, and that's a fair bit down on the 3.8 litre V6 petrol, which produces 217 kilowatts. But at 440 newton meters, torque is far more robust than the 355 newton meters of the petrol engine. It's paired with a revised 8-speed automatic, and the whole powertrain is actually quite refined at a leisurely cruise. But if you start digging in, it can get a bit raucous and strained. Outright punch is actually pretty decent on balance, but it's really at its sweetest when you dial back the enthusiasm. The multi-terrain control system has been tuned up, but let's face it, anything that's sat on machine-faced 20-inch wheels probably isn't the device that you want to point across the outback. Besides, the 2,200 kilogram brake towing capacity probably isn't quite as enticing to those who want to drag a trailer or a boat as a Land Cruiser with 3.5 ton capacity. So those are my general impressions of the facelifted Palisade, but the bad news is that you now have to shell out an extra $5,009 for the Highlander Diesel version. But the dividend is a nicer proposition with a whole gamut of extra equipment and features that doesn't really impact its strong value pitch. Its broadened suite of safety features, including improved forward and reverse AEB, means that the Palisade now gets a 5-star ANCAP safety rating. It has much more charisma than the Kia Carnival and delivers a lot of what you want and expect from a Mercedes-Benz GLS at a much friendlier price. In short, there's still nothing quite like the Palisade out there, especially as an 8-seat offering. And this new version looks to promise to continue that strong form. Let us know your thoughts on the revised Hyundai Palisade and hit subscribe while you're at it. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.